A very good evening and welcome to all the members of audience who have joined from various cities and towns in this country. It is our pleasure to welcome you again this Friday evening. This is the 19th webinar in our leadership series, which we are holding every Friday, one leader, a conversation that would throw up insights. Insights would inspire us, and then it would create future leaders. In this humble attempt, we are thankful to all the erstwhile speakers who shared their wise views and emboldened us and showed us various paths and inspired the future leaders. Today, we have yet another interesting leader and entrepreneur who is with us, and I extend a warm welcome to Mr. Arjun Ranga. He is the CEO of Ranga Rao Sons Pvt Limited, the cycle pure agarbathies manufacturer. Welcome, sir.
Thank you so much, Mr. Rao. It's my pleasure to be here.
So, ladies and gentlemen, this is the WiseViews Interactive Webinar Series, the 19th one. We are kickstarting right away with Mr. Arjun Ranga. And we have a short profile. The topic is going to be the journey of cycle pure agarbathies, which is interspersed by innovation, globalization, diversification, all the lessons that we can learn from the horse's mouth. Mr. Arjun Ranga, the third-gen entrepreneur himself, is available today with us. We are very fortunate to have him.
Thank you.
The agenda is 30 minutes of discussion, 30 minutes of a presentation by Mr. Arjun Ranga broadly. We can reduce it if required. And then we have another 30 minutes slotted for question and answers moderated by my esteemed colleague, Professor Prasad, and myself. And depending on the answers, we'll be a little elastic about it here and there for about 5 to 10 minutes. My pleasure to present Mr. Arjun Ranga. He is the CEO, as I mentioned, of Ranga Rao Sons Pvt Limited. It is based at Mysore and they manufacture agarbathies, and it is branded Cycle Pure Agarbathies. It's a very, very big brand today. Mr. Arjun Ranga has an engineering degree from Sri Jaya Chamarajendra Engineering College, Mysore. I hope I got it right. And
That's perfect.
And an MBA from Thunderbird, USA, Thunderbird Global School of Management, and many certifications in his professional development. He worked on a variety of assignments before taking over the reins of Cycle Pure Agarbathies from his father in the year 2005. Ranga Rao Sons is currently the only agarbathi manufacturing establishment which has got carbon neutral certification, and their agarbathies are exported to over 65 countries. The last I counted was roughly around 75 countries. But I would love to be updated by Mr. Arjun himself during the talk. Under his leadership, they ventured into new age products like Soul Veda. It's a portal that encourages people to engage with inner spirituality and spread happiness and well-being. They also have another app called Pure Prayer, which connects devotees to divinity, and Pure Puja that supports and imparts guidance on how to actually conduct puja traditions. They also have philanthropic empowerment and education for the betterment of society. And under the NR Group Foundation, they have a memorial residential school for visually impaired girls in Mysuru, which is a very, very important and noble activity that the group is undertaking. It is entirely managed by their family under the name of NR Foundation. So this is roughly about the guest we have today. We are excited for more reasons than one, Mr. Arjun. One is that how interestingly this family of priests have embarked on entrepreneurship. Second, how entrepreneurship, which started as a cottage industry, has grown into more than 1,000 crores business empire today with not just one product, but multiple products. And the third one, how family traditions are successfully kept intact. And the third generation is now taking it forward and multiplying the business and growing and taking it far and wide across horizontal and vertical growth. We are excited for all these reasons, and therefore we have the right person today with us who can throw some light on understanding the secret sauce or the mantras of how it has become such a huge business empire today. And we, on behalf of ICFAI Group, heartily congratulate Mr. Arjun Ranga and his family for building such a large brand, silently, steadily, and religiously, pun intended. Thank you so much, Mr. Arjun Ranga. And now I welcome you to start your presentation. And on behalf of Professor Prasad, who is my colleague, I welcome you. And once you finish your discussion, then we will start off with the questions and answer. Over to you, and thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Dr. Rao. Very humbling, introduction as always. I always hope and aspire to live up to the expectations of the billions of people who use our products, and more importantly, our family and the legacy that it has created. Okay, I would now just do a quick presentation of the NR Group, where we are, how the journey of the group began, some anecdotes about my grandfather, the true founder of the family business, and I'll talk about challenges that each generation has faced from a business standpoint and how we manage that. I'll try to finish it in about 15-20 minutes, and then we will go on to the question and answer session. Please feel free to interrupt me at any point of time with questions, because I would prefer it to be more of an interactive session than a one-side presentation. So we are known as the NR Group. NR stands for my grandfather, Sri N. Ranga Rao, the founder of the business. We have the agarbathi business, which is under his name, called N. Ranga Rao Sons, which has multitude of brands like Cycle Pure agarbathis, Lia air fresheners, Irish room fresheners, Om Shanti spiritual products, and so on and so forth. We have a diversification into essential oils under a brand name of Nesso. We have Rangson's Technologies, which predominantly focuses on defense and aerospace. We have Vayada Solar, where we do agri-solar pumps for farmers. We have SenseOut, where we do sensing devices. And NR Foundation is something we're so proud of, which is our non-for-profit charity initiative of the group. I want to just talk about NR Foundation a little bit. In NR Foundation, we primarily do two long-term projects, which is funded by the group. One of them is the Ranga Rao Memorial School for Visually Disabled Girl Children. This school started about 30 years ago, and the challenges that rural women face, more so if they're disabled, more so if they're visually impaired. So this is a school that is completely run and funded by the family and the business. Started 30 years ago for school children who are visually impaired, predominantly girls, and it's a residential school. Okay? So from first standard to 10th standard, they go through the school, go through the curriculum, and then they get integrated into the main school. We have about 120 girl children now. Hundreds of them have passed through the school. A couple of them have come back and become teachers, and they're doing really well. Apart from that, we have a program called Cycle Unnati, where each and every person in the shop floor, their children's education we support right after high school. Okay, right from first standard straight through to high school. Project Prerapana is something we're working on in the community that we live in, where we're supporting slum children to get rehabilitated and get back to mainstream. Apart from that, socio-economic initiatives of rehabilitating tribal women in rural areas. Gachiroli is one of the major projects that we're working on in Maharashtra. So we do quite a bit of socio-economic initiatives as well. What do we stand for as a group, right? Our core values was defined by my grandfather in 1948, and they have stood the test of time. And this is what defines us. And as a purpose-led brand, we always fall back on our core values to see if we are aligned in the direction that we're heading. Commitment and relationship with all stakeholders, right? This is very important. So you make a commitment and then you hand on to the relationship that you build with each and every stakeholder that's connected to the business as well as the family. Always be differentiated in your products and offerings through constant innovation. The driving word here being innovation. Family business values with professional management. Treat everybody like family. Have a paternalistic approach, but run the businesses professionally. Ethical and collaborative growth. The word here is collaborative. It again goes back to the first value of relationship with stakeholders. You grow, but grow together, grow the community that you're part of, grow your employees with you, take everybody forward. Transparency in all operations and conduct. So we are a very transparent and open organization, seamless and ethical. And ultimately, everything is, depend on the social. To be socially responsible and sustainable is a key value for us. Now, the evolution of the NR Group, I'll just talk about now. My grandfather is the true entrepreneur. Okay, he's Sri N. Ranga Rao, comes from a very humble background. If you look at his family history, it's either a Purohit or a teacher. His father was a teacher, his grandfather was a Purohit. Comes from a very, very simple family. He lost his father when he was just 10 years of age, and he had to take care of his mother and grandmother. Throughout school, he used to actually get himself opportunity to earn a livelihood. He would go to the wholesale market, buy sweets, come and sell it to the shopkeeper outside and earn a living. He would take tuitions to students to pay for the school fees. He learned typewriting and shorthand. He realized very early that to be competitive, you need to be multi-skilled. And in those days, learning shorthand and typing was very important. So he made a deal with the typing institute because he couldn't afford to go to school. He said, listen, I'll bring you 5 students. You teach me the 6th person free. And that's the first sales promotion that he did. Quite a lot of things. He learned how to repair watches. He solved crossword puzzles for senior citizens. And that entrepreneurial spirit was always in him. Got married early in 1935. That's my grandfather and grandmother. And coincidentally, when I grew up, I used to call him Factory Appa and Factory Amma because they were living in the factory. Okay. In each family, you have a name for your grandparents. And in my family, it was Factory Appa and Factory Amma. And what was the key challenges for him? The ability to take a risk. He was 36 years old, 4 children. India had just got independence. The British had left. He had got a full-time job in Polybeta, but he decided to give up everything, move to Mysore, follow his dream, had the courage to start his own business in 1948. I think, being courageous, believing in yourself is one of the biggest learnings for us, as a group and as a family, to be daring and to trust your instinct and gut and go ahead and do what is required. And that sacrifice that is required to back up your dreams has to be there. And that my grandfather was a true testament to that. He always looked at global benchmarks. He didn't just look at agarbathi businesses, but he said, which are the best businesses that I can aspire to look at and learn from. So he was always open to learning, look and drew inspiration from multitude of functions. And one significant learning, ethical business practices was etched into the way we govern the business. We have our accounts books from 1956. You'll be surprised to see that the tea expenses in the office where he drinks his tea is booked as a personal expense. Okay. And he paid from his pocket for that. And that's the level of integrity that the person has. Honesty is one thing, but integrity is a level above. And that's what the company was built on. Key challenges he faced was, he was alone. He had to build a system and process. He had to develop a core competence without any prior knowledge. And that's when he realized that in agarbathies, fragrance creation is going to be the biggest core competence. And he built his own fragrance creative lab, got books from France, imported them, waited for a year, studied them, and built his own fragrance creative lab, started creating fragrances on his own. And today, that's one of the biggest innovations for us. Our fragrances have stood the test of time. We are our own perfumers. I'm a perfumer myself, apprentice. My dad is a perfumer. I've learned from him. So we create our own fragrances, and that's one of the biggest advantages we have in the export market as well as in the domestic market, because we control what we create. Okay, and that's one of our core competencies. And then he realized access to market is important. So we need to be able to be close to the customer and give him products at the right time. And so he started to innovate in distribution. He invested in van sales, started getting commission sales agents for the business, created a sales SOP document. When it's inspiring to read the 19 pages that he has written for each and every salesperson. It's like a manual that we can follow even till today. It is timeless. It is relevant for any person at any point of time. And then he had the big challenge of nurturing the second generation, because he had 7 children. He had to take care of each one of them, inspire them to come and join the family business, right? I mean, these are a few of the quotes that he had written. This is in 1946. He writes, after 10 years, I hope to be in a big town or in a city getting a monthly income of at least rupees 200, either in some commercial concern as a paid employer running a business of my own. I also hope to derive immense benefit from my son, who I'm going to introduce to the commercial life. It is my ambition that I should hold a capital which will yield an interest of at least about 150 per month within a period of about 12 years. This is 1946. Okay, a person who's come from Madurai district, a village called Markingote, who lost his father when he was just 10 years old, a self-made man, right, in 1946 before independence. This is the vision that he had about himself, the fierce belief in himself that he had, all right? And this is what built the business for us. 1948 to 1950, this is where the factory and residence was. This was the place he came in and started the business. 1952, after he built the fragrance creative lab. 1953, he won the gold medal for fragrance creation in the Mysore Dasara exhibition. 1950 to 60, this was the factory and the residence. This is my father, our uncle, the chairman, who actually sacrificed so much and joined the business. My auntie, the eldest aunt, Padma auntie, who actually was the first one who supported my grandfather in making agarbatti. And if you can see, at the back, you can see all the packing material and other things. So father still remembers that after he came back home from school, he finished his homework and he would sit, with the packing material and help his father and, mother and elder sister and packing products and other things as well. And, I talked to you about innovative distribution. He started van sales on his own. This was our factory from 58 to 75. And then this is something that he wrote in 1969. I think this is timeless. He said, if I look at the last 20 years, the 1949 to 69, the top 6 guys don't exist today. And he articulates in his book about why they don't exist. And one of the fundamental things that he says is ethical business practices. Okay. And, for me, right, one of the biggest opportunities of growth came when I came back from the US in 2000. I could go ahead and bring in technology. I could implement an ERP. I could start looking at data management and analytics because we were a completely transparent and a compliant organization. So I never had to look at sitting behind a cash register to collect money, none of that. I could plan on scaling for growth, building people, all right, and getting opportunity from the market. And I think this is one of the key aspects that businesses need to understand if they need to scale is ethical business practices will take you way ahead of what you can imagine, far ahead of short-term benefit that you'll gain by looking at tax. This is our corporate office today. Challenges the second generation faced came in, had multiple aspirations. India was just developing. This is from about 1969. Grandfather retired around 1975. He passed away in 1980. So the second generation of the family business, my father and uncles are the ones who actually built the business to the scale. Right? By around 1974, we were number one in the country. And by the grace of God and all the customers that we have and the team that I am blessed to be working with, we continue to be the largest selling incense brand in India and probably in the world as well today. If you look at the second generation, they always pushed us to look beyond Mysore. They encouraged us to travel, understand the world, look at the global perspective, look at opportunities overseas. They started to professionalize. They built an independent marketing division so the company can start doing FMCG level of distribution. We were one of the first ones to actually get a Wipro DX2 computer to Mysore to start doing data analytics. Right? This was in 1988. We all used to go to the office to look at the computer. And for me, I was just amazed that I could play ping pong, from one side to another. And this was when I was, 10-year-old in 10th standard and looking at a computer, then it used to take half the space of the room. But an agarbathi company from Mysore was investing in data analytics then. So the actual drivers of growth started, once they started to think beyond agarbathis, transparency, ethical business practices, all in tune with the core values of the business. They constantly deconstructed and reconstructed business practices, adapting with new ways, new technology. 1992, when liberalization happened and the country started opening up, they started to look at more opportunities of getting raw materials into India that the country had never seen, of fragrance materials and ingredients. Commitment to the consumer was always paramount, always looked at delivering superior value and always keeping up any promise that you make to a consumer. So these things the second generation started to do and started to nurture us in the third generation as well with quality education and also showed us the global opportunity that was available. And then the third generation is us. We came back in 2000. We are 6 of us in third generation. Each of us came back getting qualified overseas, either engineering and then MBA or MS, and then worked outside the family business. Came back and each of us started to manage one of the group companies. I take care of the parent business, which is the agarbathi business, along with my cousin Kiran, and each of my cousins, we are 6 of us, including me, take care of one of the group companies today. So what does the future hold? And this is always pertinent. Ideas and action are going to be driving the next stage of business. Okay, speed to market and ability to adapt to change will be the key factor. Technology and IT, we all know, I don't even have to tell you how we have become a social species now, and it is going to be the order of the day. But what will always remain is who we are, what is our culture, what are our values, and what is the purpose that is driving us to do what we do, right? Ultimately, I think we all need to think big, but we have to start small from somewhere. And my grandfather is an example of what one can achieve if he dares to dream big and believes in himself. Thank you all. And we live in a great country, great opportunity. And each of us need to believe that we can achieve great things. And doing that, please ensure that you give back to society and take the community that you're living in forward as well. Jai Hind. So I'm done, Mr. Sudhakar. I finished it as fast as I can, so you get a high-level gist. We can now move on to the presentations from your side.
Yes. Request. Yeah. Great. I think that's an amazing story of the journey from 3 generations that you have presented very crisply. Several takeaways and all of that I won't be able to summarize right now, but in several questions that we have put together, when the members of audience have registered, they wrote a few questions and those questions are now divided into clusters. And each of those clusters are these are sequenced in a manner that we elicit very good, useful insights from you. So we will do that after a while. But very important 3 issues that we have seen in the presentation currently that you've made. And it's awesome that your grandfather's handwriting is so beautiful. I'm someone myself have fancied that my handwriting is really good. But if I have seen and compared the notes that you have shared now, my handwriting during my childhood was much, much better. And right now I just scribble. But your grandfather during that time, he is, in spite of running a large business, he managed to note down the reflections so well. As late as 1975 also, it was amazing. Second and very important thing that touched my heart is the fact that he wrote an SOP for sales organization. That's an amazing thing. And one would love to actually read that SOP at an opportune time. And if you can let us read that, we'll definitely do that. And it will inspire many, many sales heads in this country who are planning to build their careers in organizations by taking certain cues and lessons from this. And the third and the most important thing is, see, everything will fall in place if you have the ethical dimension very well maintained and leading from the front. Tea expenditure also is paid by oneself and jotted down, and it is displayed and listed, is an amazing step to build the culture of the organization. Everything else would flow from there. I think one word that says it all is integrity. Integrity by the top #1 person, and he's leading it from there. It's an awesome, awesome lesson for all of us. Thank you very much for putting together this great presentation. So with those few words, what I'll do now is I will welcome my colleague, Professor R. Prasad. Professor R. Prasad is the Director of Academic Wing. He is the architect of the latest program that we have launched. It is called Online MBA Program. And Professor R. Prasad has 3 decades of rich experience, which he brings to the table, which is inclusive of entrepreneurship, working in corporate, as well as working in academic world. Professor R. Prasad studied engineering from IIT Bombay, and he studied his management from IIM Calcutta. And here we have the architect of online MBA program. I welcome Professor R. Prasad. Please initiate the Q&A session with the first cluster. Over to you, Professor Prasad.
Thank you, Professor Rao. Very good evening, sir. It is indeed a pleasure to remember and smell the agarbathies. I used to light them in my cycle brand in my hostel room in the 80s. So there is, so since then the memories are fresh, and the fact that this is a very large group and it comes from a place like Mysore and it has gone to so many other places also reminds us a lot about India and how it is relevant. I think this is the dream that many people who not only in the metro cities, but also in the other cities and towns would like to keep with them and feel inspired. So there are many, many reasons why this is a very special kind of a session. And I think it's also, a special kind of business. Agarbathies, immediately, the sense of smell comes and, you remember the agarbatti very clearly. So I hope that the incense also inspires all of our the members who have joined us today. So we have had about 330 plus registrations into the webinar till the last time I looked at it. And there are a good number of questions. So we have tried to be as structured as possible so that there is some sort of a theme and focus and flow for everyone to take back on. So with that, I will start with my first questions. This is about how the cycle brand, the company started. How did your grandfather start his journey? What inspired him to choose this line of business? If you can spend a little time on that, I think that's the starting of the inspiration.
Yeah, quite a bit of it I already covered in my presentation, right? What inspired my grandfather. But 1947, India has just got independence. He got his first job in Arvangadu, okay? He comes from a very small village called Vatraipu in Madurai district. Mother, grandmother, all of them with him, got married early, children. He moved from Vatraipu village to Arvangadu cordite factory to get his first job. Then he got a promotion opportunity. He moved to Coorg, to Polybetar, to Consolidated Coffee Works as a bookkeeper. I moved there in 1945. My father was actually born in Palibata. Three children by then. 1947, my father was born. 1948, India has gotten independence. He gets promoted. He says, this is the time I need to also be free. I need to pursue something that I'm passionate about. 36-year-old, moves to Mysore because it's the nearest city. Very spiritual man. He starts the agarbatti business in 1948.
Which was the first innovation that he created? I mean, during his tenure, which was the first innovation? Can you spend some time on that?
Oh, the whole organization, if you look at the last 75 years, is driven by innovation. First great thing he did is create his own fragrances. The biggest innovation that he did, in those days, in 1950, agarbatti used to be in a tin container. And when he sat down and looked at it, the packaging cost was 60% of the product cost. He said, consumer is not paying for packaging, he's paying for the product. So he said, I'm going to go ahead and use duplex board, cardboard, improve the outer cartons. And we were the first company to launch duplex board cartons. Okay. And he invested everything in the fragrance and the quality of the fragrance. The first product that we launched is called Cycle Malika. Because Sugandha Malika, it was an overnight hit. Okay. And that was one of the biggest innovations. So, and the innovation came from the core value of saying, never lose focus of the consumer, always give value to the consumer. And that was one of his first innovations. And the second one, I think, which is the biggest testament, not the second, but the main innovation is branding. He realized that for a product to sell, you need to have a brand. And you need to create something that no matter what your religion is, your age is, your language is, you should be able to understand. And you should be able to visualize. And that's how we came up with the word cycle, because the cycle is called a cycle anywhere in the country, whether it be Punjabi, Malayalam, Tamil, English, it's called a cycle. And when you see the symbol, you easily recognize it to be a cycle. And then he said, a cycle is affordable, it's aspirational. Everybody can have it, just like how God is and prayer is. And that's how the philosophical values of what a cycle means got attached to the brand. Right? That the cycle of life, when there's a birth in the family or otherwise, when you're happy or when you're sad, you need God. The cycle of life continues with cycle agarbatti and prayer. So it was just not limited to a device, but a bigger philosophical thought. And that's how the brand was defined, that it personified hope and freedom. Just like how a cycle is for you, right? When you learn to ride your cycle for the first time, you feel free and liberated. And that's what prayer does to anybody. And another important aspect of what a cycle is that it is agnostic of who you are, right? Rich or poor, it is the same vehicle for everybody. It is driven by your will and it is eco-friendly. Okay. And so these philosophical values was one of the biggest thought that the company has built over the years. And the innovation of coming up with a brand like Cycle, I think is genius from my grandfather. And this he came up with in 1948, 1950.
Wonderful. I think, it connects very well and we are able to relate now with respect to how that was chosen, the cycle of life, the fact of liberation, as well as the agnostic to the kind of person who's writing it. Excellent thoughts for that kind of a period. And then we have held on to it. And I think that itself speaks a lot. The next question, sir, is about after you've taken over, of course, you've been influenced by your past, but what are the key principles which you have used to take your journey ahead?
Oh, man, whatever the family and the business is derived, one of the biggest qualities for me is to trust your people. That's my biggest strength and that's my biggest weakness as well, is I'm a very trusting person. I give the responsibility and I trust my team to the utmost extent. And that's been one of the biggest factors for our growth. People in our company who've been with me for the last 5 years, 10 years, 20 years will tell you that without this team, we couldn't have gone anywhere, right? And for me, that's one of the biggest legacies that I carry forward is this family business values with professional management, right? Believe in your team, build your team, take the team forward together. So for me, apart from all the other, bringing in new technology, getting into an ERP, implementing SAP, getting into ISO, getting all the certifications, all of that, none of it would have been possible if not for my team. And so that's where it fundamentally begins.
Thank you. So it's trust and team, which are the basic underlying foundation to the other things which are done. Now we move on to the next question, and this is about today you're present in many countries. But can you share your first experience in exports as a country?
Many experiences, yeah, because I was lucky, to be able to travel with my father during his export sales opportunities. This one experience I always narrate. This is in Turkey. Okay, it's in the spice market. I asked my dad, "Why are you bringing me to a spice market? It's so messy." He said, "Just come walk with me." Right. So I walked with my father in the spice market. He just asked me, "Do you smell that?" I said, "What smell?" "I only smell pepper." He said, "Just above that, you'll get a fine fragrance of a jasmine flower. Just see if you can smell that." And I couldn't smell it. I said, "I can only smell pepper and ginger and garlic and all of that." He said, "No, just follow me." Then we walked through the market and we went and stood in front of a shop. He said, "Just go ask him if he's lit an agarbatti." I said, "What are you talking? It's some store in Turkey. So just go ask him." So I went in and asked. This is old man who came out and he said, "Yes." And then he went in and brought a packet. It was our Sugandha Mallika. Can you believe it? And he said, "See, I know. If you don't know what your product smells like," he said, "boy, you're going to be in trouble. You better go back and practice." And that was one of the first orders that we booked. That gentleman was getting his Sugandha Mallika from Dubai into Turkey. And, we sat with him. Dad explained the products, explained the category. And then he said, in the Western markets, spices is connected to Eastern culture, spices and silk. So in most of these markets, incense goes hand in hand, right? And that was one of my first experiences of understanding. I thought we go into a mall and go into a shopping mall and we'll find a modern trade outlet with a counter where you'll find agarbatti and then you go speak to the purchase manager. It didn't work like that at all. And that was one of my first experiences. This was, I think, 1990.
And does this work in most of the other markets, this connection between the spice and Eastern culture? How does it work?
It depends. It's very specific to the market and the culture in that country. I was just giving you one example. In America, you're not going to go find a spice market. So it's different in that market again. So we export to about 75 countries and each country is unique in its culture and how it does business. I was just giving you an example of one.
Okay, so then there's quite a bit to learn even from each market and the way you've adapted to that. Yes.
I think, each experience is unique, right? My first trip to Egypt, I've just come back from the US. I go to the Egypt market. I want to break through. I've taken 2 days in Egypt. My customer takes me for breakfast, picks me up, takes me for lunch. I want to start talking business. He doesn't want to talk business at all. Then he takes me for dinner. He takes me for a cruise on the Nile. I want to talk business. I keep getting restless. He doesn't want to talk business at all. Next day, again, we start. I'm getting ready, have my presentation, have my briefcase. I'm sitting down. He's like, no, you come, we'll go. I'll take you here. I'll show you that. We eat. I'm like, my flight is in an hour. I need to go. He said, we've done with business. I like you, you like me. That's it. We shake hands and business is done. And he just did this. He said, we are done. The business is done. I like you, you like me, and that's it. The relationship is what business is all about, not about commerce. And I just come back from the US, and that's when I realized each culture has its own way of communicating business. Cross-cultural communication is key in export market. And each of us need to learn how to communicate in that market. Same thing in my experience in Japan. We just didn't speak for 1.5 days. I just told them everything about me. They told me about their culture, their business practices and all of that. 15 minutes before I had to leave, they just said, okay, here is our order. Completely opposite in America. When I go in, it starts with the order. Here, this is the products we want. Can you please tell us how we're going to support us? So I think each country is unique. Each culture is unique. In the export market, it's beautiful. It's a challenge. And that's what makes it so much of fun as well.
Thank you. I think, the differences that you brought out are illustrative of what all can be there in case one wants to get into the export business, and the kind of innovations you have done, the kind of work to get there in all so many markets that are getting mentioned, 65, 75, the number, whatever the number is for cycle. But that's a great thing to have gone to each of this, and for a product like agarbatti done that. The next query is also slightly broad, and this is from the business environment and regulatory space. Are there things based on which you switched and made your innovations for your business based on the regulations that you have seen? Will you be able to pick up a couple of them and then inform us about the kind of changes that you brought in and the the kind of activities that you did.
I didn't understand the question. You're saying how did regulations impact business?
Yes, I mean the key ones and that drove your business, like LPG. I mean the 1991-92 kind of thing, like that.
I mean, there are multiple instances, right? I mean, you need to adapt with changes in the political environment. You'll read about pest trends always in your MBA program: political, economical, sociological, and technological trends. And political trends are the ones that govern laws. Multiple challenges throughout. The GST was one of the biggest challenges that we had to face, right? From a company and from a category that was zero excise, we had to move into a 5% GST regime, where the entire channel and entire business had to adapt to the new norm. But we looked at it as an advantage. GST gave us the opportunity to become distributed in our manufacturing. So we now have 11 locations close to market. Logistics costs have improved. So GST has been a blessing for us. Our costs are rolled up, and it's a fantastic initiative by the government. So GST is one example. I can write a case study about it. If you look at a country like Brazil, where we had a major challenge when agarbatti got reclassified from a religious product to a cosmetic product because the consumption in that country increased. So we had to completely get into new regulation, registration, get REACH registration, look at environmental compliance, get the product lab tested, certified, change packaging, adapt to new packaging norms, communication on the devices changed. So these are, part of business reality, right? I mean, adapting to change with political laws is something that you have to learn to live with. And you need to look at the advantage with each and every such opportunity. Because there will be challenges always, but in challenge lies opportunity.
Certainly. I think that's the very purpose of the question. I think, a lot of small caselets which are coming out, you've been narrating a couple of them in every question. I think that brings out to many of the participants as well as the students of management, the fact that, each case is special, and at the same time that each is, while a challenge is manifest, there is also an opportunity. Thanks a lot for this cluster. I think I'll hand it back to Professor Sudhakar Rao for the next cluster.
Thank you, sir. It's been great listening to you. I will now focus on growth. The history of Cycle Pure Agarbathies itself and its growth story is aligning itself with the growth story of India. Somewhere around 1947-48, the entrepreneurial thought has actually come out into the open, and then the organization was born. And somewhere around 91-92, gates were changed by the government of India. So did you. And in the third generation story of your organization, a lot of technology has been adopted. I think it is aligning with the growth story of India. And I would like to now focus on this growth as a module. So the first question here is, for so many years, for 70 years, this organization has been well managed and well run. What are the secret mantras? Because running is one, and then spicing it up with same enthusiasm and same energy levels throughout when different leaders have taken it up. So what were the secret mantras that you see in this organization?
Well, I mean, how many ever times I tell you it's not going to be enough. It is with the people of the organization. People make the company doesn't make the people. All right. And what the brand stands for needs to be percolated through the organization. The purpose that drives the organization needs to be there, and each one needs to back the other. Okay, and that's been the mantra for the last 75 years for us, and that will continue to be the mantra for years to follow. Along with that, you have technology that comes in and a mindset that is willing to change and adapt to new things. Cultivating that culture of learning and unlearning and relearning is a great challenge, right? Because you have people who come in fresh out of college who want to do so many new things, and you have people in the organization who've been there for 30 years, 15 years, 20 years. Both of them adapting to change at the same time consistently can only happen if both of them think of the greater good and the greater goal that the organization stands for. And as a leader, creating that mindset in each and every person in the company remains to be the biggest challenge for me, right? So explain to them what the purpose of the organization is. Why are we the only carbon neutral, zero carbon agarbatti manufacturer in the world? Why do we want to have the least impact on the environment? Why are we so much focused on sustainability? Why are we moving towards zero plastic? Each and every person in the organization needs to understand that this comes at a cost, but that cost that we are investing in is for the betterment of society and ultimately each and everyone in the company. And then we will all work towards the shared vision and the shared goal, right? And that's always been the biggest challenge for me.
Awesome. It's the people that make the company and not the other way. And most importantly, how certain decisions and ability to change and adapt, keeping the larger good in mind and running the organization with that purpose and sharing that to the last person, percolating it down to the last person is the secret spice or secret mantra.
Mr. Rao, there are innumerable questions in the chat box as well. So I think at some point
we will take it up and plug in at an appropriate time.
Perfect.
How do you use online mode of business and to what extent it has helped you?
Well, we're predominantly offline FMCG kind of a distributed product, right? You need to understand that the unit purchase price of an agarbatti packet is 10 rupees and the bigger pack is 50 rupees. Logistically, it is not practical to ship a 10 rupee packet or a 50 rupee packet, right? But however, online and social commerce in the last year and a half has seen a huge increase purely because of the current situation. And I think it is here to stay for the long term. But if you look at the overall business cycle, the online contributes negligible in the overall scheme of things. Still, general trade and modern trade are the biggest contributors.
Okay, great. So, sir, what has been the role of technology in your growth and success, starting from factory to the consumer process, sales process, and delivery?
Yeah. See, I'm a big techno geek, right? I believe in transformation that can happen if you get technology in the right place. There are broadly, I'll just give you all some gyan. From what I've understood, there are 3 parts to how you can bring in technology. You have at the first level, digitalization, which means whatever is physical, if you have a physical copy of documents, you first digitize everything. The next level is the digitalization, wherein processes you try to automate wherever you can. And then the last level is the digital transformation, where decision making is also happening using technology. That's when analytics and AI come in. So as a company, we are still in the digitalization process. All right. Digitization has more or less happened with ERP and SAP coming in. Digitalization is still happening, where we are still taking some decisions, all right, using technology, but we're still some ways away. And it all started by integrating our supply chain, integrating our ERP, and then building products around the ERP to be able to cater to different requirements at the endpoints and then plugging it in. Now with blockchain, with analytics coming in, creation of data lakes has become critical. How we manage redundant data, how do we manage data, security, all of that is huge because our transaction volume is innumerable. You can imagine we sell close to 12 billion agarbatti sticks a year, right? That is 6 billion prayers we help fulfill. And my customer requirement is no prayer get interrupted. We need a zero failure rate. When an agarbatti is lit, it cannot stop burning. So that is the amount of data that we capture on the quality side, the amount of information that flows through the system on the sales side. As an organization today, we directly cover close to 700,000 retail outlets with our company sales executives who are on a Salesforce app through 4,000 distributors, and we indirectly cover 15 lakh retail outlets. So we are among the top 20 non-food FMCG companies in India today. So you can imagine the data that's coming in from the front end and from the supply chain, all of which needs to come to one place where our demand planning team can take decisions real time on product supply across the country, right? And this is over and above the export market, which we have, 75 countries that we are exporting to, and we are still a very, very labor-intensive organization where we have close to 10,000 women making agarbattis for us and packing agarbattis for us across the country. So it may look as a very simple, humble product, but there is so much that goes behind delivering that one packet of agarbatti to that outlet where a housewife picks it up, goes home, and prays for the well-being of her children and her family. So yeah, technology is key to accelerate this entire exercise.
Amazing. As you rightly mentioned, it looks very simple as a product, but then so much of technology and the muscle behind it to make it actually and also deliver it across so many 700,000 retail directly and 15 lakh, that is 7 lakh to 15 lakh indirectly, is something mind-bogglingly big. Yes, you are a retail giant in that sense. Amazing story about that growth and using technology to manage both the data as well as feedback. Sir, the next question is about as you were rightly mentioning, export is another area of growth. For most of us around the screen, including me, traveling to 75 countries itself is a very big deal. Now, doing business with 75 countries is something unimaginably big. And for a product like Agarbatti. And this is something that you have to decipher for us, sir. What are the key lessons for me and for my audience?
In most of the businesses, export travel is limited to the owners. Okay. In our case, it is not. So we have a solid team of sales guys, marketing executives and managers who are actually in charge of export markets. I predominantly travel, this is all pre-COVID. Once in 2 or once in 3 years, I would make it a point to meet each and every one of my customers physically one-on-one. Either they would come here or I would visit them. And that is to build a relationship, right? And this is something that my father and uncles realized, that they will be the limiting factor to growth, not the market or the opportunity. And that's when they hired good people to run the export business for us. Again, people makes a difference, like I said, and that's been the key. Another advantage that we had is there is slight nuanced changes in fragrance requirements for each market. Some markets need the fragrance stronger, some need it milder, some need more impact, some need more uniqueness, and the ability to create that small subtle differences in fragrances has been a key factor for our sustained growth in exports as well. And outside of India, it's not the Indians that are the market, it's the locals that are the market. So you need to customize products based on what a Nigerian needs, or an Ethiopian needs, or a Malaysian needs, or an American needs, or a Brazilian requires. So packaging as well as fragrance.
Amazing. I think these things actually spur a lot of career opportunities. Perfumery to reading the consumer's nuanced preferences for fragrances. I really don't know. I mean, this webinar will not be able to capture, however, but one is amazed to understand how you have become an ambassador of fragrance, going out from this country to several countries, like as many as 75 today. I'm sure at each interaction level, each time you put a perfume on their nerve and ask them to smell that fragrance, I'm sure that moment of truth, that touch point has made you an ambassador across at least 75 countries. That's a very, very big thing. Awesome, actually.
Just to add to what you said, you look at the way agarbatti exports has increased. Now, 2000 was a pivotal point, for the world as well. Now, people started to look for answers. The entire attack that happened, on 9/11, subsequent to that, people looking for answers, a level of insecurity, the way the world changed, and now it's COVID. After that, I think this is the big global impact part. Few things changed after that, right? People started to look for answers and started to think inward. That was one of the times incense and meditation took a giant leap. That is when you'll see a spurt of yoga, you will see a spurt of vegetarianism, veganism, eco-friendliness, green wave. And agarbatti kind of caught that wave around 2002, 2003 with yoga, Ayurveda, Khadi, and then agarbatti. Okay, in the Eastern culture. So you light an agarbatti, immediately that Eastern ambience is created. And I think the Indian agarbatti was right there at the right time. It's just not our company, but every manufacturer from India who competed with China and Thailand and other countries who were making incense, but our agarbatti stood the test of time because of our quality and our fragrances. And today, Indian agarbatti is the undisputed leader in the global market with almost a 90% market share. Indian agarbattis are exported to close to 160 countries, and we are only at 75 today.
Amazing, sir. Making sense of incense is the theme that you have built just now. While it is still continuing to trouble me in terms of deciphering the whole thing, I'll ask one small, simple question, sir. What is the next area of growth for you in the company? Is it new products launch, or what kind of additional things that you do? Just at a peripheral level, you can help us understand that.
I mean, the opportunity is there. Wherever there is a prayer, I want my brand to be there. And and India has close to opportunity of 80 lakh retail outlets. For us, we are at 15. So it's a growth in width and depth. And like I said, we are in 75 countries, and Indian agarbatti is already in 170 countries, 165 countries. So the opportunity is immense for the product. As long as there's rituals, prayers, and traditions, the product and the brand needs to be there. And we've also now got into beyond just agarbatti, into puja samagri as well. Prayer oils, camphor, so on and so forth. We see that as an opportunity. But where I think the biggest opportunity lies is the adaptation of home fragrancing. So we have a brand called Iris Home Fragrances, which is it's our brand. It's a lifestyle home fragrance brand with reed diffusers, potpourri, scented candles, aromatherapy oils, and all of that. And I think there's a tremendous opportunity of growth there as well, and in functional air care. So we have a brand called Dia, which is a room freshener and a car freshener brand, and home care with a brand called Stoppo. So we kind of want to move not just in the puja room, but beyond the puja room into the living room and other spaces that you're in, and make it a fragrant life for you throughout.
Several opportunities, sir. I'm going to sign off with this small question in this group called growth. 1948 to 1991 to 2000 to actually 2021 or 2020, which is nothing but pandemic. At every stage, you have given a solution. At every stage, you have marked your growth in a very significant manner in terms of shift, in terms of adapting new technologies or traits and new ways of doing business. How did you manage pandemic, sir? It's now more than 17 months, 18 months.
Pandemic was really, really tough for us. Again, I go back to saying my team, it's true champions, each and every one of them. And amazing, they stood up. I was traveling. I came back to India in February. I transited to Dubai, and I realized that pandemic is going to hit India. So around Feb 15th, I had a team with the managing committee, and I said, guys, there's going to be a lockdown. I looked at what Korea did. I looked at what Taiwan did, learned from them, and said, there is going to be a lockdown. We'll all have to work from home. Team didn't even understand what I was talking about. I moved all the computers home, right? Around end of Feb, I said, we are going to run mock drills, went to the bank, borrowed extra money so that we'll be able to pay salaries for our employees, because that was my fundamental responsibility, is to take care of my team. And then when lockdown was announced, March 23rd to 2020, company was completely prepared mentally as well as physically to work remote. And we had a 3-month plan in place. My sales guys and my team did a fabulous job on preparing sales manuals, whatever we had left in the back burner, right? We said, let's complete all of those tasks working from home, each and every one of us. And I went out there and I overly communicated with everybody, gave them assurances. We took COVID insurance for each and every employee, additional COVID insurance, gave them a COVID impressed amount so that they'll have immediate pocket expenses for exigencies. I did whatever we could, created a committee to manage. We have a 3,000 strong team in the company. So we had to take care of each other. And I got to say, each and everybody stood up like champions. And I'm so proud of every one of them. And they made a difference in the communities that they lived in. They supported migrant workers wherever they could. As a company, we contributed to the Prime Minister's Care Fund, close to $1.5 crore. 1.08, we donated local 10,000 N95 masks. We set up a hand sanitizer line overnight to support the local community, with 10,000 bottles of hand sanitizer. Today, it's become an important new market opportunity for us as well. So, we did whatever we could to support the nation and the community that we're in. But for me, the priority was my team and my people. I needed to take care of them first.
Amazing lessons, amazing measures that you have taken, and taking care of the people. With this learning, I'll wind up, and I'll now hand it over to Professor R. Prasad for next cluster of questions.
So I think from this part, the understanding that you've brought in when you're going to a market, as well as what you did, when you address COVID, I think all that stands out. Quite a bit of understanding and preparation, which is very visible in what is getting done, and it all impacted the care that you gave to your team members and the values that you stood by. I think that's something very, very remarkable. I'll now pick on a question which is there in the chat box. Of course, we have many more questions, but this is part of it you've answered. This is about the kind of customization that you do in international markets. The other thing which is there in the question is about the main differences in the consumption pattern of the domestic market and the international market. If you can throw some light on that.
Sure. I think customization, I want a little bit explain, right?
Sure.
This is 2007. I've gone to the Brazil market. We have a new customer there. I'm part of an exhibition. So I go with my regular domestic products. I have my Cycle 3-in-1, the largest selling brand in the world, my sandal agarbatti and all of that. And then a customer comes in, a Brazilian, young, about 2021. She picks up the packet and says, looks nice, smells good. But what do I use it for? What do I pray for with this? And you can pray for anything. He said, no, I need to know this particular agarbatti, what I should pray for with this. So I said, in India, we light and whatever we want. If it's exam, I'll pray for my exam. If it is work, I'll pray for my work. She said, no. Then give me an agarbatti for exam. Give me an agarbatti for work. So if you look at the Brazil market, right, there is an agarbatti called business. There's an agarbatti called money. There's an agarbatti called health. So if they want to feel healthy that day, they'll light that agarbatti. So it is amazing, right? I mean, if you don't look at the nuances of how they adapt to Eastern culture, you will lose the entire battle. I mean, there are some products that says, envious neighbor. Okay. So it's that level of, and you need to create fragrances accordingly. You need to do some research and then tie it back in to what that fragrance application is for, right? So if you look at it, we have close to 350 SKUs in the domestic market, but close to 2,000 SKUs in the export market. That level of customization for each market.
Excellent. I think there's quite a bit of the same understanding and preparation, understanding the customer, and then preparing to serve his need, which is coming. And I think one of the dimensions which answers the consumption pattern is also this 2000 versus 350 that you mentioned. Anything else on the consumption pattern, sir?
Yeah, India is by far the biggest consumer of incense because everybody prays in our country 2 times a day, right? But the funny thing is, if you go to South America or any of these markets, just like how it is cool for us now to adapt to Western things of going to a mall or going to McDonald's, for them it is cool to light agarbatti at home for the youngsters. So it's kind of a reversal that's going on there. The Eastern culture is cool for them. For us, the Western culture is cool now. So it's kind of an eclectic mix, but that's what makes it so much more fun.
I now come to the queries. There are a set of queries on the diversifications that you've made, and you got such a broad range: aviation, defense, agriculture. So what motivated these diversifications, and what kind of challenges and opportunities did it bring accordingly?
I'm blessed to be in this family that always believed that we need to dream beyond. But there are 2 schools of thought, right? Some people say if you focus and all of you focus on one business, the opportunity to grow is higher. But we believed in collective growth, and we said, let us look at business opportunities that came by. And what we felt is ability to manage a business that is value driven is inert in each and every one of us. And we can always get good quality professionals who have domain expertise. So if you look at avionics, right, cutting edge technologies that we have in our avionics division, but we have the greatest minds working there with us. And my brother Pawan is doing an amazing job of managing that entire ecosystem, right? And as an entrepreneur, that is where the challenge is, identifying the right people for the right opportunity and then building the business that can scale. So any business opportunity that we have looked at beyond agarbatti has an opportunity to grow leaps and bounds. Apart from the essential oil business that we got in, where the herbal extracts business that my brother started, Anirudh, is now growing tremendously. So we started it off as a floral extract company. Today we're into herbal extracts and nutraceuticals and functional foods and all of that as well. So it's not about having domain expertise rather than having expertise in how to run a business.
Going through this journey, are there any challenges that you'd like to share with us which are notable, which we need to keep in mind?
No, challenges are tremendous in any business here. I think you face so many hurdles, but one of the biggest strengths that you can have is a family that you can depend on, a group that you can share your issues with, that can help solve, and have the courage that there is somebody standing with you at all points of time. Like I said, this is an example I give always. There are 30,000 people dependent on every decision I take. But I also gain strength in knowing that these 30,000 people will back me no matter what. Okay. So challenges will always be there in any business, in any profession, any occupation. And you need to learn how to face it, adapt, and move forward and look at every challenge as an opportunity.
Thank you. I think what you've just said is that, while the challenge is there, it is more important to focus on how you're going to handle it. And then in your case, it's the family and it's the courage that you've displayed as well as your team, which you're responsible for, which have helped you to get across them. Thank you. I think the next question is about competition, and that there are organizations like ITC which are entering the field, and also that consumer tastes are changing. So in your view, what is the impact of competition, and what has been your response to it? One of the queries also related to about consolidation of the industry. What are your views on these?
No, competition is good. Healthy competition is always encouraged. competition ensures that you deliver constantly to the customer. The end consumers, value will always increase if the competition is healthy. I think I believe in a good, healthy competition all the time, and it has really helped us improve as well. If you look at the way we've evolved, we had, in the early 2000s, Hindustan Lever entered agarbathies, Reckitt Benckiser entered agarbathies, Nirma entered. Today, Ujala is also making agarbathies. Godrej have entered agarbathies in a small way now. ITC have been there in agarbathies since 2000. So yeah, competition is good, and in this industry, there are a few challenges that you need to remember. That the industry is highly fragmented. There are very, very strong local players throughout the country. And there is no economies of scale in this industry. The bigger you get, it doesn't get cheaper, like many manufacturing organizations. The costs also increase. So you need to have a very lean supply chain. You need to be able to manufacture it just in time. You need to be able to be very cost efficient in this business. So these are challenges that bigger companies sometimes face as multinationals, right? Which smaller companies are able to manage that are owner driven. So these challenges exist. And for us, our core competence remains fragrance creation. And all of these guys don't create their own fragrance. They buy their fragrance from people who create fragrances for soaps to detergents to everything else. And that's been one of the biggest, advantages for Indian agarbatti manufacturers. But competition is always good, and everybody has brought in new things to the business whenever they've come in, and new opportunities as well.
Thank you. I think you addressed the question about the competition and also how you've handled it, which includes two key points. One is about the fact that since it's family driven, the way you handle your supply chain as well as the costs can be very different from how the others do it. And the second is about your core competency of the fragrance, which is not there with the others. The next query, sir, is related to the kind of geopolitical changes, trade wars, and will they have any impact on the short term, as well as how players in your industry will respond, how you will respond? Is there any China effect in this?
Oh, definitely. Geopolitical plays a very, very key role in any business that is, multinational, right? Beyond one country. Look at a country like Sri Lanka, for example. Non-tariff barriers are one of the biggest challenges for growth. Sri Lanka has a import duty of 1,000 rupees per kilogram. So virtually anybody from India can't sell in Sri Lanka. You need to set up something locally. The challenges are there in Bangladesh. If you want to go to any of the East African countries, there's a huge currency crisis happening. So geopolitical scene is there across, and that's where the opportunity also lies, right? And smarter organizations learn how to adapt to it. Smarter companies across the country are managing geopolitical change globally. In India, I think the new Atmanirbhar movement is something that is going to be one of the great pivotal points of this country, where what we have to understand, Atmanirbhar Bharat does not mean you make everything in India. Don't look at creating world-class products. I think what Atmanirbhar Bharat to me means is create world-class products in India that can be globally competitive, no matter what, right? And I think the direction that the country is taking is fantastic in that regard. No matter what, you need to be able to be globally competitive, okay? And that's what I think, I believe every country is trying to achieve as well. And non-tariff barriers is going to be a big function, because every country will start to think inward going forward.
Thank you. I think there is something that for everyone to think about in terms of a specific challenge there, and also how you have been responding and utilizing the Atmanirbhar Bharat in the way you respond. I think that finishes this cluster. I'd hand it back to Professor Sudhakar Rao. Thanks a lot, sir.
Thank you, sir. I think we'll take it up from there, Atmanirbhar Bharat, and how do we make sure that local resources are used for global businesses. So, sir, kindly help us understand what is the kind of quantum of imports that you do, for example, importing of essence or importing of fragrances at this stage. I read that as a country, we import roughly around, we used to import till 2019. And the value addition of the Indian manufacturers is as high as 85. And what we import is probably roughly around 15%. Correct me. And how do we make sure that local resources are used for global business?
So what you need to understand is, what is the resource that you want to use? What is the value addition that you want to bring into the country? Okay. Let us take For example, lavender oil. Lavender oil predominantly grows in France, and it's the best quality in the world. Do you want to spend resources and try to bring lavender to India and start planting lavender in India? It won't grow here. What do? Do you stop using lavender because it has to come from France? But then you want to be globally competitive because you are actually competing with everybody else in the world in the global market. So you need to see what you're good at, not move away from your core competence. Build on the resources that you already have in the country and leverage on your competitive advantage. That's what Atmanirbhar Bharat means. Don't try to discover something that does not exist, but build on your core competence. Now, this is something that I strongly believed in because I was bombarded with questions, during the entire China crisis 3 years ago. When people kept saying that American businesses are moving out of China, they're saying, which business are you going to grab? I said, I have a business already to protect and grow and nurture. I have a core competence already that I need to build on my strengths. I don't want to look at somebody else's weakness and then start building something that is not my strength yet. Okay. So that's, I think, a fundamental difference in thought. And it does not mean you should not get raw materials. I mean, you look at the entire electronic vehicle challenge that we're going to go into, it's going to be the next biggest thing. EV batteries are not going to be immediately made in India. Solar cells, for example, you look at chip fabs, no semiconductor is made in India. Does that mean we should all stop using cell phones because the chips are not made in India? No, that's not the thought process at all. So how do you become globally competitive, create the best quality products using Indian minds, Indian technology, and take it to the next level? And that's what I strongly believe.
Amazing, sir. It's a practical and pragmatic way of handling your core strengths, focusing on the core strengths, and yet trying to be a global player. And that's what you have done. Very, very nice. The second question here is somebody is actually planning to do a plantation of bamboos. And so he wants to understand which bamboo is best suited for agarbatti sticks.
It's called Bambusa tulda.
Say that again.
Bambusa tulda, TULDA. That's the best.
So with respect to plantation of bamboos, these are taken from the forest, harvested from the wilderness, or they are forests that you cultivate? What is the backward integration for you?
So India, till just 2 years ago, it had not deregulated bamboo. So bamboo in the country was always wild harvested from the forest. You had to give a contract to a tribal who would go wild harvest the bamboo from the buffer zones, bring it outside, and then you would have to actually make bamboo for any activity in India, for furniture, for agarbatti, for broom, for any product. It was always wild harvested. Only since 2 years has the government deregulated bamboo. Earlier, you needed a storage license, a transport license to even move bamboo or to harvest bamboo. So bamboo industry in India is just nascent. There is tremendous opportunity for growth. The National Bamboo Mission is doing a fabulous job in actually creating the bamboo clusters across the country, identifying different opportunities and resources. So agarbatti is in the lower end of the value chain in the entire thing. Okay, but there are so many other business opportunities like bamboo tiles, bamboo furniture, bamboo toys that will see a huge spurt of growth in India going forward as well, because it's only now that bamboo can be looked at as a cultivation crop. So we are working with the Karnataka Forest Department very actively, identified clusters in North Karnataka. We are working with about 10 FPOs, farmer produce organizations with almost about 10,000 farmers to start encouraging them to grow bamboo in their farms on the periphery as a fencing that can be harvested, sustainably over a period of time. So India is very, very nascent in that regard.
Amazing, sir. I think the future is bamboo, as the way you have explained just now. Sir, another question is, there are lots of fragrance sachets which lose their freshness, say, in a period of 4 to 5 days. Why is it so?
It depends on where you have used the sachet, the application, the amount of ventilation, the impact that you expect. But typically, it should last anywhere between 20 to 30 days. If it's a good product and it's in an enclosed space with the normal ventilation.
10 days.
Yeah. No. 20 to 30 days.
20 to 30 days. Amazing.
Yeah.
Do we have smokeless agarbatti, sir?
And it's not called an agarbatti. It's called something else. It's like asking, do we have smokeless fire? So. Then it's not fire, no, it's just a log.
So other forms of incense packaged.
Yeah, there are many other forms of incense, but incense is what burns. agarbatti is, burning stick. So that's what it means. So we have many other methods of freshening your room, right? You have your reed diffusers, you have your scented candles, you have your oils and all of that. We have less smoke incense.
Okay.
But zero smoke is not possible, then it's not agarbatti.
Great, sir. Thank you. That's a big learning for us. Sir, how does your company manage the issues arising out of the common ground between health and incense?
Well, we follow all the international guidelines, the WHO norms for indoor air management. Also, each and every employee in our company is governed by the OSHA standard that we abide by, the occupational safety and health. So both our employees and our customers, we take care on both sides. We use completely standardized products, pure ingredients in our incense sticks, and very, very clear in the way we produce our products as well, very ethically, sustainably, transparently. So as far as we are concerned, it's completely good and fine to use, as long as you use it in well-ventilated spaces. And then,
so one last question I have. I know we are beyond the time that we have sought from you.
oh,
One last question. It has been so interesting and full of fragrance. So we continued without realizing that we passed the time. Several generations have handled your business and you're still managing while simultaneously making it professional. So you professionalized it and you're still managing it. How does it look like for the next gen for you?
well, my responsibility is to showcase the opportunity to the next generation, right? But my fundamental goal is to ensure that this brand and this company and the people that are in this company continue immaterial of the family. To sustain and perpetuate is a goal that I have, but the brand and the company and the legacy should live on no matter what. It can never become people dependent. And that's been always the goal of the family as well. If you look at the second generation, they showed us the opportunity. I traveled with my father and uncles. They showed me what this business can offer. And we were all convinced that this is something that I want to pursue and commit to. And I had a good job in the US after my MBA, working there, gave up everything and came back and worked for the family and the business and the people in this company as well. So my job is to show the opportunity to my son, encourage him to get educated, qualified, not just the son, but the daughters in the family as well. My brother has daughters, all of them. So the next generation need to show them the opportunity, and they need to be motivated enough to come and work and serve the company and the people in the organization. And that should be our goal. But immaterial of whether anybody comes back or not, the band and the business and the family should sustain.
Amazing, sir. Amazing vision for succession. That's great. So one last point, which is I'm taking a cue from what you mentioned just now. I'm told that there are roughly around 4.5 lakh to 5 lakh people who work in this industry across the country. And I don't know if it is right, but roughly in that direction. And out of which 75 to 80% of them are women. Yes. Now, if we are moving from semi-mechanization, which is probably the current stage, will it also move to automation, and therefore we're going to affect the livelihood and jobs of so many women who are dependent on this industry? Is it going to be forever labor intensive?
Yeah, we already moved into automation in 2008. It's fully automated right now.
And still you have so many women working in the factory.
Yeah, imagine just my company alone produces 12 billion agarbatti sticks.
Oh, it's because of the size. Great.
Yeah, and the volume and the consumption. So many people pray in India. And why women? Predominantly because agarbatti is delicate. You need dexterity to manage the agarbatti sticks. And there is bamboo, and there's a lot of natural raw material that goes into making the agarbatti stick as well. So the handling is a challenge. Also, there is a huge amount of packaging that happens, which is completely labor intensive. Agarbattis cannot be easily packaged with machines. So packaging activity is a huge activity as well that employs lakhs of people in the country.
Amazing, sir. On this happy note that women provide the dexterity which is required in the agarbatti industry, we continue.
And I think another important point is that this is one of the businesses that started work from home in 1956, and you are all starting to do that now in 2020 because of COVID. So we've been doing work from home from my grandfather's time itself, and when women were ideal at that point of time to be working from home, and it's continued not till this day.
Amazing lessons and amazing connects that we are continuing to work from home after so many years, after 7 decades as well. Thank you, sir. I think this session has been fantastic. It is like a masterclass into the incense industry, and amazing inputs in terms of ethics, honesty, integrity, people management, and people itself. And of course, growth, diversity, and all byproducts, as you have very rightly and successfully practiced and mentioned. Ladies and gentlemen, we thank our guest for providing all these valuable inputs this Friday. He has enriched our session so much that we'll be forever indebted to him. And ICFAI Group will definitely go back to Cycle Pure Agarbathies and we'll start writing the case studies that we are good at. We are one of the largest producers of case studies in the world. And every year we win more than a dozen awards internationally competed. And after our award, we have certain names like Harvard, INSEAD, so on and so forth. So that is our humble rise to our own core competency called case studies and the making of case stories. Thank you very much, sir, for this opportunity. Ladies and gentlemen, we must thank about the astounding fact of the brand salience the grandfather of Mr. Arjun Ranga has taught us today. The philosophical tenets of the brand of cycle is something which I will have to go home about, and then everything else is being drawn from there. Sir, the industry will survive as long as there is a requirement of prayer. When there is trouble outside, we need to pacify the inside. So the inner spirituality is something you provide and produce tools that help us achieve inner peace. Amazingly done and well executed throughout your 7 decades of journey. May God be with you. We are all with you, sir. Thank you very much for sparing your time and sharing so many inputs with all of us. Thank you all from ICFAI Group.
Thank you. All I would like to say is believe in our country, believe in yourself, back each other, always. Trust is one of the fundamental principles that you need to believe in, and everything will be okay. Jai Hind and God bless.
Jai Hind. Ladies and gentlemen, the pandemic is not over. I think we need to take precautions. Please keep wearing masks and maintain social distance. Don't rush into anything.
Vaccinated.
And let's not
get vaccinated.
Correct. And get vaccinated if you're not. And don't, even if you get vaccinated, don't rush into crowded areas and don't abandon caution. So with that responsibility of maintaining safety and security for all of us, I think each one of us will take up those measures. Thank you all. We'll see you again on Friday next, same time, 6:30 p.m. with yet another interesting story that this country would have produced. Several stories, some are visible, some are less visible, some are high engaging, some are low engaging, but only when you talk to them and listen to them, you will understand how much of India lies unknown to us. This is our humble attempt to discover more Indias within India, and all these leaders are helping us do that. Thank you all so much for joining. Thank you, sir, once again.